Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, non-binary, distinguished guests, welcome to Ridiculous, the life of a clown.
Who I am, John Gilkey, yeah. What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I've been teaching for the last 5 years. But I'm kind of moving away from that now.
What are you moving towards?
I don't know yet.
So you are most famously known as a clown. Pickle Family Circus, Cirque du Soleil, and so on. But you started, you're a big part of your skill set. What you started off was as a juggler, right?
That's right. Yeah. When I was a teenager.
So how did you get started in circus skills? How did you get started as a juggler?
I was 10 and my brother's friend was over and he was juggling some tennis balls or oranges or whatever. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. So I guess he taught me a little bit at that point, and then I just kind of ran with it. Well, off and on for like a couple of years. And then when I was 13, I started to visit like this weekly gathering of jugglers down in Sunnyvale, and kind of met up and became friends with these guys and gals, and kind of had at least one mentor there who sort of took me under his wing and encouraged me to keep learning new stuff and to compete and to do shows and things like that. So I was pretty into the juggling, from 13 on.
What was your first show?
Well, that's a good question. What was my first show? Jesus, you'd think I would remember that. I remember an early one was doing, a birthday party for my sister who was 10 years younger. So
really
it maybe, but that would have been, I don't know, maybe she was 4 or 5, so I would have been about 15. I did the talent show in junior high school, so I would have been 13 or 14 for that. I think that was kind of my first actually kind of show. I'd consider that the first show. Me and a partner did that show together.
So what came first, clown or joining the Pickles?
Pickles, yeah, for sure. I was only juggling prior to the Pickles, and then the Pickles I started learning the acrobatics and then character and clown stuff. Yeah, once I was there.
Who were you partnering with when you were in the Pickles?
In terms of juggling, when I first started with the Pickles, I was performing with Tash West mostly, although everybody, in the Pickles juggled, right? So she was my primary partner, but then at the end of the show, we would do the big juggle, which was where everybody would get up on the rolling globes and pass clubs and stuff. And then in later years, I was juggling with Noah Chorney and Joan Mankin, and Donald Forrest, and Karen Quest.
I've never not been in love with Joan Mankin. She was one of my favorite people, and aside from yourself, not to blow smoke up your ass, but like my second favorite person to direct me.
Oh, nice. Yeah, she was lovely. I miss her for sure. So,
and kind of the gist of what this podcast is about. What brought you to clown?
Well, excuse me. Yeah, shortly after I joined the Pickles, which I had never imagined that I would work for a circus. It never occurred to me before I kind of, heard about Pickles and was encouraged to audition for them. But once I joined the Pickles, it kind of opened up a world to me, beyond the juggling, with the acrobatics and the clown stuff. And obviously Larry Pizzoni was an inspiration, and Jeff Hoyle was a big inspiration. Bill Irwin had already left the scene at that point, but, I'd seen videos of his and stuff. That was all super inspiring. early on. And then also in my first, in the beginning even of my first tour with the Pickles, we went to Philadelphia and we were there as part of a theater festival. Sorry. And there was a guy named Bolek Polivka who performed there in a show called The Fool and the Queen. And that was sort of a theatrical clown show, and that kind of blew me away. And that really pushed me over the edge. I feel like, sometimes I feel like even today, 30 years later, everything I do is sort of recreating what he did in some shape or form.
That's amazing. Bolek Poliva?
Polivka, yeah, I think it's Bolek and then Polivka, Polivka, something like that. There might be slightly different, American spellings of it. I don't know if he's still alive. I assume he is. He's a Czech guy. Hope I'm getting it right. Czech guy performing in Poland, or a Polish guy performing in Czechoslovakia. Jesus, now I'm spacing it out.
What were your first?
Yeah, anyway.
What were your first steps into clown? Where did you start? How did you first present it on stage? How did that come about?
Well, in the Pickles, one of the beautiful things about that company was that we were exposed to so many different sort of directors and choreographers and other performers. So even starting in my second year with the Pickles, we were doing acting classes and commedia classes. And obviously commedia is, clown has, roots in commedia. So I was sort of eased into it in that way. In 1988, we did Café des Artistes with the Pickles, and the second half of the show was a whole commedia themed restaurant scene. And so we were all playing characters in that show, and that was definitely even though I wasn't, maybe a clown per se, I was starting to lean towards clown in that show. And then in 1990, Joan Mencken did me a real solid and got me up at Blue Lake, where I was able to sit in and do a 1-month workshop with Ronlyn Foreman with the second year class. At that time they had, I guess, a 2-year program, and in the beginning of the second year there was some dude who couldn't be there, and I was able to take his place for a month, and that month was focused on clown search with this guy Ronlyn, who's a genius. And so that was actually the only formal training I ever had, was that month with Ronlyn up at Blue Lake. And that was amazing. And I think that was really Joan's, she was such a huge influence on me, and she was looking out for me. She saw this opportunity. She saw that clown might be a good direction for me to go. And she got me up there. And she was right. That really got me fully convinced that was like a good direction for me.
So, your skill as a juggler is very high caliber. And again, not to blow smoke up your ass, but I think you're one of the greatest living American clowns. How do you define yourself as an artist? What do you call yourself? Are you a clown? Are you a juggler? Are you something else? What are you?
I struggle with that because I don't find myself particularly good at either one. One of the reasons why I moved away from juggling is because I didn't see myself as a very good technical juggler relatively early on. I saw that other people were growing faster technically than I was in the juggling community. And so I started to incorporate more character and theatricality to my act. And even in the clown community, I don't know. I struggle with how to identify myself. always have. I don't feel like I'm quite in any particular niche. Even like when I speak to people at Cirque, some people refer to me as a character, some people refer to me as a clown. And today still, like, even though I've been teaching this stuff here down in LA for 5 years, and it's gotten bigger than I ever imagined, and there's this whole community that grew out of these workshops I was giving, I never used the word clown in any of our promotional materials. We never used the word clown once on the website. When I'm teaching, I'll use the word clown, but like, I just don't use it. And I feel like that was twofold. The reasons were twofold. One was I felt like clown was sort of a bad word in the States, that people don't really know what that means. Or it doesn't mean the same thing to the broader public as it does to us. And then I also didn't feel like I was necessarily teaching clown per se. So yeah, I don't know, man. I struggle with that. I don't know what I am. I don't know what I do.
I gotta say, my interaction with you as a director and as a teacher, I mean, again, you were, I was coming at it as a clown, but what you were giving me was definitely what I would call clown. And there's this similarity between what I received from you and what I received from Joe DePaul and what I received from Ronlin. There seems to be a continuity of how you approach being on stage and being a character and coming into that runs through all of you. And to me, that was definitely, at least for me, about clown. How did you transition from the Pickles to Cirque?
I'm sorry, from what to Cirque?
From the Pickles to Cirque.
Let's see. There was a few years in between, for sure. There were 8 years in between. Is that right? No, not that long. 5 years in between. I left the Pickles after 4.5 years and went to Switzerland and performed with the Dimitri company there in Switzerland. There was sort of a back and forth between the Dimitri company and the Pickle Family Circus artists, going back and forth for several years prior to me going over there. And we made 2 different shows over there and toured all over. And those weren't circus, they were more theater, but also commedia, definitely commedia inspired. And we did some circus skills there as well. But that was another sort of push, away from the juggling for sure, and more towards character and clown work. And then when I came back from Switzerland in 1993, I started working on a solo act. That's where sort of the modern version of the coat rack act came to be. I'd been doing different versions of it for years before, but the one that people are familiar with, the one that I did at Cirque du Soleil, that act came together when I returned from Switzerland. And there was about 2 years after Switzerland and before Cirque du Soleil where I was doing, variety shows in San Francisco and comedy clubs and did a high-end, world-class variety show in Winter Garden in Germany, the Winter Garden Varieté, which now a lot of people are doing that kind of circuit. A lot of people have been doing it forever. I didn't start anything. I guess my point about that one was that when I went to Germany, that was sort of my first sort of world-class gig. That's where I kind of went onto the next level. Mm-hmm. Maybe international is a better word for that than world-class. And then shortly after that, I auditioned for Cirque. And that's kind of a long, stupid answer to that question.
No, you came into Cirque in creation. Like you created a role your first time through, and that was a starring role, or did you do something before you started starring in Cirque?
No, my first role was that kind of lead role in Quidam, and it was I was extremely fortunate, particularly I can say now looking back on on it 20 years later. The character, but when I came to Cirque, they said, oh yeah, you don't need to bring, your material, your acts, your character. You don't need any of that. You're going to create new stuff here. But in fact, in the end, shortly after we began rehearsals, I was asked by the director to share all my material and everything, my costumes and makeup and all that stuff. And he really liked it. So my pre-existing character and bits, numbers, were incorporated into Quidam. And, I think at the outset, I wasn't necessarily going to be such a lead character, but as I say, the director kind of dug what I was doing. So he put me, in the center of things.
And you ended up doing starring runs in 4 Cirque shows, is that right?
Yeah, let's see. I did Quidam, and then Dralion, and then Varakai. And then Iris, or Iris, down here in LA. And then there was one I was supposed to kind of they tried to bring me into Zarkana, but that didn't work out too good. So we can't count that one.
Okay. So you did creation on all these. Like, you helped develop the show. You're not just stepping into a role in all these roles. Is that right?
Yeah. Dralion was slightly different. The show was already open. The clowns were leaving after a year or two of the tour, but they were taking their material with them. So even though the show existed, I was asked to develop new material for that show. And so I reached out to a buddy of mine who I'd wanted to work with anyway. We sort of expressed mutual interest to work together. We never had before. And I was able to give him a call and say, hey man, I think we can have a gig here if we want. And I went down to New York, and we had 2 weeks to put together a couple of acts, and then we came back to Montreal, showed them to the big wigs at Montreal, and I can't believe it, but they they took those 2 bits of ours, and those 2 bits were in the show for 15 years, something like that. Crazy.
So on that note, creating work, before you get in front of an audience, before you get in front of a director, how do you know what you're making is good work? What's your theoretical framework? What is your frame of reference for knowing what you're doing is good?
I never know. I never know, man. I mean, when I was earlier in my career, up until Quidam, let's say, my material was all based on skill. So for me, it was mostly juggling and object manipulation. And I could have some sort of objective view of that. I could step back and look at the physicality, the technique. I could look at the costuming and the way I was using music, and I could sort of have an objective view and say, this is working. It's clean. It's got a solid look to it. It fits. There's a relationship between me and the music, and but at that time it wasn't like I was going for huge laughs. As I moved more into roles and characters that were less reliant on the tricks and on the skills, and more reliant on laughs and gags, that became more difficult for me to be objective, and I just hoped that it was funny. For sure, working with a partner rather than as a solo artist helps, because you're both in there laughing together, and if you both think it's funny, that's encouraging. And then beyond that, I think I just go with my gut. I do what's fun, and I do the things that I would want to see. I think also I look at it in a way where I see what's missing, like in the community, like what kind of stuff is not happening, okay, and I try to fill that hole. And so I think a lot of times I might be floating myself a little bit because it's original, and maybe I can get away with being a little bit less funny because it's original. So people will give me a little bit of slack.
A leeway. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you did Cirque for a bazillion years, and you ended up in LA doing What the Hippo and the Idiot. What happened in between the two?
That's a good question. What happened? Well, there was sort of, I left. It wasn't quite as clean as that. I did 3 shows back to back for Cirque, Quidam, Dralion, and Varakai. And then at that point, that's when Franco Dragone, the original director of Cirque, was splitting off. This is 2001, basically, 2000. He split off from Cirque du Soleil, started his own company. So when I finished Varakai, I went to work with him as sort of the head of the clown department. So I worked with him on the Le Rêve show at the Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And so I was charged with hiring, scouting and hiring a bunch of clowns, 7 of them originally. And then, with the clowns developing material for the show. So that was a couple-year project. That was super fun, super stressful. I went after that, I kind of teamed up with some of the guys in that show, and we made our own little shows around town, kind of local shows.
In Vegas?
We were doing stuff in Vegas. We'd come out to San Francisco and do shows as well. LA. And we were kind of, in that area, like in that time I think I'd had enough of the big shows for a while and the pressure of that and wanting to have more freedom in what I could create. Sometimes feeling, in the big shows, like I was a bit constrained because it was for a family audience always. And I don't know. The Le Rêve show at the Wynn was an extreme case, but we had so many people to please these producers. Franco, the director, was super, super great, and he was very supportive of us and loved what we were doing. But Stephen Wynn and the producers of the show were very hard to please, and it just wasn't fun. Once they became, they kind of became de facto directors of our material.
Wow.
And that was no fun. So after that, I felt like, okay, it's time to do some more experimental stuff. And so just kind of did little shows with my buddies, making stuff that we thought was funny and didn't need to please anybody. I kind of did that off and on for a few years. I did Teatro Zanzani for one go. That didn't go too good. So I didn't do that again. They didn't ask me back.
That's a shame. I loved, from the outside, their company was, a wonderful thing to be able to experience on a local level where you could go and get that, from what we experienced, that caliber of performance, without having to go to a big fancy show.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bummer that didn't work out. I was kind of jazzed for that. I think I was in sort of also a pretty, when I was working with them, it was sort of an odd time. And people told me at the time, oh, you got to come back and do it another time because this isn't usually how it goes. But I guess, it just didn't quite gel for us.
So how'd you end up in LA? Obviously we're remiss not to talk about Pixar, but how'd you end up in LA and what led to With the Hippo and the Idiot?
Right. So, I came to LA for the Iris Cirque du Soleil show. So I hadn't done a Cirque show in, several years. Finagled myself into the Iris show thinking this was going to be, my retirement. That's putting it a little strong, but, I was really looking forward to being in a permanent non-touring show in California. That was a pretty good catch for me. So I moved down, from San Francisco. That was 2010 or 11 we moved down. 10, I guess. And then the show started in 2011. But then the show closed a year later. I was actually kicked out before the show closed. There was a bunch of us that were fired. We weren't really fired. I guess we were just let go. The show was struggling from the beginning. They weren't able to get an audience in there. So they kicked out a bunch of us, about a dozen of us. And then the show closed anyway a few months after that. So, yeah.
Are you still on decent terms with Cirque?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they brought me, I was told one of my very first days, I was told by this guy, Stephen Regatz. I don't know if you know Stephen. He's great. He said, "Oh man, you'll be fired and hired many times over. And every time they hire you back, they'll promote you." That was back in '96, and he was super, that was, prescient, because that happened several times. So even after, like in Iris, I understood why they let me go. They let some people go from that show that they shouldn't have let go. I understand they're trying to save money, but yeah, my role was never like particularly great in that show. But they brought me back a year or two later for Zarkana in Las Vegas because they were having trouble with that show, and they thought maybe I could help out with that one as a performer. But I didn't do very well with that one either, so they kind of let me go. And then, they let me go, and then they said, you could stay and just direct a little bit if you want. So I kind of got promoted there a little, a little bit too.
Yeah,
and I helped to just sort of tweak some things in the show at that point. So I don't know. I mean, they're very good to me. They've always been very good to me. And even now, a year or so ago, they asked me to help with some casting, which I think, they ask a lot of people to do that, but still. As far as I know, we're on good terms. I mean, I was blacklisted for a while, so there was a period where I wasn't on good terms. But that passed.
So, tell us about Pixar.
Yeah, Pixar. There wasn't that much to it. It sounds better than it was. I mean, it was pretty great, but it was very short, unfortunately. I had, when I was on tour with Varakai, I met a guy, Jim Capobianco, sweet guy, who was at that time the head of the storyboard artists, and they were creating a new movie called Ratatouille, and we got along pretty well, and he dug what I was doing in the show, and so he thought it might be a nice idea to bring me in and help a teeny bit with writing some gags for some scenes in that movie. They were trying to, for the first time, create more physical scenes, and they were having trouble kind of writing those. The storyboard artists are essentially the writers.
Yeah.
For that kind of movie. This is what I was always told. So they brought me in once or twice, and I, they had some props and a couple of costumes, and they asked me to play around with some ideas, fleshing out some characters and some of the physical gags and such. You see, they don't do, unlike many places, they don't do motion capture at Pixar. So they just filmed me, and they made sketches as I did my stuff. That would have been pretty fun. I wish that had continued. That would have been a pretty sweet gig to continue to have that kind of relationship with them. But I think, it probably just wasn't that necessary. I think and I think in a way maybe it took something away from the sketch artists, the storyboard artists. Maybe they wanted more freedom to do what they wanted to do, even if it was taking a bit more effort for them to figure out how to create it. It just didn't seem to jive with their what's the word? Anyway,
process.
Their process. And then I did another, like a couple years later, or a year later, I came in and tried to create a gibberish language for a short they were doing. Called La Luna. that was super fun. But in the end, I think they decided not to use it because they felt that the gibberish was going to confuse an audience on an international level because it sounded too much like it was a language they were supposed to understand.
Okay.
So they were afraid it would create more questions and than they wanted to. So they kind of just ended up with grunting.
So before we get into What the Hippo and the Idiot, what is a or the weirdest gig you've ever had?
I'm never good at these kind of questions. Weirdest gig I ever had.
We can come back to it if it jumps into your head. Tell me about What the Hippo.
What the Hippo? Well, let's see. What can I tell you about What the Hippo? I started after I got, after they kind of kicked me out of the Iris show in LA. I was, my wife and I were here in LA. We'd been here at that time about a year and a half, and we were pretty happy here. So we decided to stay rather than go back up to San Francisco. And I was, not sure what to do next. But I, recognized that there were a ton of, extremely talented people in LA, obviously, and a lot of comedians, and in particular the improv community here is super, super strong. And I thought, well, I bet, at least some of these folks in the improv community, they probably dig this clown stuff. They probably just don't know about it, but they would dig it if they were exposed to it. So I set about to teaching, a couple of 6-week workshops, once a week for 6 weeks. See if I could get some people to take it. And I did. And people did want to take it. So it went super well. Now it's 5 years later and I've got people teaching for me. So it's a little, I guess I have to explain. There's What the Hippo and then there's the Idiot Workshop, and they're sort of intertwined. So the classes, the workshops are the Idiot Workshop, but after a few months of teaching the Idiot Workshop, I had like this handful of people taking the classes that were just beyond talented, and so we said let's get together and let's make a show. And we called that first show What the Hippo, and we did it at the Hollywood Fringe Festival, and we got this amazing review. And then, we sold out after that, and that kind of launched that brought a lot of people into the Idiot Workshop, and then that also kind of launched this sort of performance wing of the Idiot Workshop, let's say, which is the What the Hippo. So, nowadays with the Idiot Workshop, there's a bunch of people teaching for me. I'm not even teaching at all right now, basically. We've got, half a dozen classes at least a week that are being taught. And then we also have a bunch of shows that fall under the What the Hippo umbrella. In fact, we have a brand new one that's going to be opening up next week, a week from today. Yeah.
What's it called?
The new one is called, well, that's so funny you asked that because I might be changing the name as we speak. We've been advertising it as the Good Time, Great Time game show.
Okay, I've seen that on Facebook.
And I'm just now working on a new graphic where I'm kind of minimizing the Good Time, Great Time. But anyway, it's a game show.
Cool.
And
this will go up today. So where's it going to be at?
Okay. Oh, awesome. We're at the Electric Lodge in Venice Beach. It's at 8:30 p.m. on the 27th and the 28th. So that's next Friday, Saturday. $20. You can get all the information on our Facebook page, the What the Hippo Facebook page, or you can get it on our website, whatthehippo.com. Also the idiotworkshop.com if you follow the show's link and go to the schedule page. That'll give you some information.
Cool. We don't have a lot of listeners, but hopefully we have some in LA. Um,
Yeah.
so you don't want to teach anymore?
I'm pretty burnt. I'm pretty burnt. Um, um, it's, uh, it's been 5 years, and it's just, as every waking hour is if I'm not actually teaching, I'm working. I've been working on the administrative aspect of it, or it's just all consuming. And I've reached a point where um, I haven't been growing as much recently with it. I haven't been discovering as much recently. Um, and I just need to get new experiences of my own. I need to go out and do new things and get recharged, and um, and maybe then I'll have something new to bring, to the table. But I also feel, for the longevity of the school and for the community, um, that having other people teach is the strongest thing
Got to mix
for
up
the
the DNA.
for the
Yeah.
longevity of the community.
Well, here's my issue. Um, we really want you to come up here and do like a 2-day workshop. How infeasible is that? I mean, we're talking like 2 or 3 years down the road after you recharge.
I don't know, man. I'm kind of taking it day by day now.
Okay.
I
The best, again, third time blowing smoke up your ass, but the best instruction that I've gotten as a clown has been from you. Second to that would be Joe DePaul. I got a 1-day workshop of Joe DePaul, or a 2-day workshop, and that was excellent too. But the best, most informative work that I've done when studying to do this has been under you. And I know there's a lot of people up here who are missing out horribly by not being able to be down there where you've got their school going on.
yeah.
Um, but you got your life to live, so that kind of comes first.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I really do. I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard. Like, I've been trying to pull back from the teaching for more than a year, and
They don't want to let you go.
yeah, and I don't want to disappoint people, and I feel like I want to be there for people. I've started something that has grown beyond anybody's expectation, and as I say, there's this whole community that grew up around this thing in LA. Um, and that's what people, I think, in many ways, people respond most strongly, I would say, even to the community, even more than the teaching itself. And but with that, but I never like, and then I'm the leader of that community, and I'm grateful for that. But it also has a lot of responsibility that comes with it, and that responsibility can be very overwhelming and stressful sometimes.
Yeah.
And as I say, I feel like for the community to be strongest and for it to continue to grow, it should be a horizontal rather than a vertical structure. So kind of by taking me out of it, by chopping off the head, that gives strength to all these other people who've been working with me, who have so much to teach in their own right.
We got all that extra, so many more perspectives and nuance. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's how the community will be most rich. And so, for example, I mean, I'm happy to send people up there to teach, and I think you'd be very happy with them. And they'll teach my stuff.
Well, and that's the thing is we've got nothing like that up here. We've got nothing like that kind of community in San Francisco. I mean, the Clown Conservatory, in my eyes, ceased to be once Jeff stopped running it, and the community that we had around that just kind of bled away. Everyone moved off, and there's always more clowns coming out of the current Clown Conservatory or whatever else is around, but there's no sense of community anymore, because the majority of people who are here studying for a decade or more and working on this art form and building shows together have all spread off to many different places, many of which to Cirque, many of just to different states, and that's something I think that's really sadly lacking in San Francisco is that sense of a community of artists who share to some degree, a perspective, and that perspective is that this is a valuable art form.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I get it, man. That's it's a bummer to not have that support system. I don't know. I mean, I could never have developed that community down here if I'd set out to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was listening to some really obnoxious, like, entrepreneur, motivational guy, but he's talking about how winners win, man, which I'm like, I don't want to hear you anymore. He's like, winners are humble, winners grind. And if you don't do the work, if you don't grind, you can't build the thing, you know? And if you set out to just make yourself successful, that doesn't seem like a way to succeed. You do the work, and you do the work, and you do the work. And it seems to me that you are that kind of person who has always just done the work.
I get distracted sometimes, for sure. In LA in particular, it's such a beast down here. In the beginning, I did a really good job of not letting myself be attracted to sort of the Hollywood system. And then at a certain point, when we did start to gain steam and grow, and when I had all these people I felt responsible for, I started to feel like, oh God, I have to make this more successful. I have to make sure these people are working and making money, and
make it viable, yeah.
And I did start to get dragged into that system of success-driven work. Fortunately, I don't go too long before I realize that that's overtaking me, and then I'm able to step back a little bit. Yeah.
So you stepped back. You stepped back from the idiot and Web the Hippo, presumably more of an administrative role. What is next, or what is now? What are you pursuing?
Right now I'm pursuing kind of just zeroing out, just kind of trying to let go of the, related to what we were just saying, kind of let go of the result-oriented attitude, and let go of some kind of expectations that I have to fulfill for outside people or outside reasons.
Yeah.
Try to let go of my fear that I have to make money.
That's a hard one. That's a real hard one to let go of.
Yeah. And I kind of want to just sort of go into like creative bliss, where everything is where I set up everything and surround myself with the things that allow me to feel creative, for no other purpose than to create, and to so I'm working hard to kind of put things into place, like, make my home peaceful and beautiful, and to shun the things that make me feel obligated to do anything. And I'm hoping if I can succeed at that, if I can create just sort of an oasis of creative energy, then something will come out of that. And I think if I can do that, if I can create that space for myself, and if I can give myself a fucking break, and dig deep enough, if I really am a creative person, then something good will come out of it. I kind of have to trust that.
Well, I mean, sorry, looking at you from the outside, there's no way that can't work. I mean, no matter what, you've accomplished a goal of freeing yourself up, so you've gotten something out of it. You've taken all this painful stressor off yourself and giving yourself the room to breathe. And then it doesn't matter what you create after that point, because you're going to, I'm not making a lot of sense there. But yeah, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good goal for me. And yeah, I feel like I'm ready for it. I feel a little bit like, I did all my performing with the circus, and I learned a lot, and then I passed it on, with and I put the focus on other people, and passed on everything I learned, and learned a ton more in that process. And now I feel a little bit like I'm free to do whatever happens without, again, like I repeat myself, but without feeling like there's a particular goal in mind. I don't have to please anybody. And my hope, even though I try not to put end game on it, but my hope is that, yeah, something new and surprising will come out of that energy and that space that I give myself.
Okay, I got 3 more questions for you before I let you go. And these are a little more esoteric. In terms of what influenced you as an artist, in terms of media, theater.
In terms of what? I'm sorry?
Media. So
yeah.
Theater, music, television, books, whatever. What is the media that influences you as an artist? And maybe what is some media influencing media that you think is underrated and deserves more attention?
Good question. For me, music is probably my biggest inspiration. Music and mostly music. Dance, often when I can find good dance. What else? Yeah, I'd say music is certainly the big one. I can't make music. I try. I'm learning, playing the guitar and stuff like that, trying to learn. But for me, often like my creative process begins with listening to music.
Any specifics that you think people should be paying more attention to in terms of music, artists, formats, styles?
Oh, I wish. That would be fun to put that together. No, I'm just kind of like, I just kind of wander around Spotify, There's nothing right now that's really doing it for me that I can share.
For me, and I will share it with you, what picks at my brain the most is when people recontextualize popular music. So people like Postmodern Jukebox, which is out of LA, who takes pop and rap and
oh yeah, no, I know them.
Jazz.
They're great. I worked with one of the tap dancer who's with them.
She's great. The tiny person with the black hair.
Yeah, this was a couple years ago, so now I'm spacing her name as well.
She's wonderful. But also Leo Marathioni, who's out of Sweden and does metal covers of all these kinds of songs, or a mashup artist like DJ Schmoley, who does just anyone who takes a piece of music and takes it out of its context and rearranges it in such a way that it has new flavor and meaning. That gets me in the guts every time.
Cool. A couple other things I can share. I haven't been reading about this so much lately. Don't ask me what it is because it'll take another podcast to tell you. It's up to you or whoever's listening to look it up. But pataphysics is if you look into pataphysics, there's something very, very fun about that and
P-A-T-A?
Very clown. Sorry?
P-A-T-A?
It's actually apostrophe P-A-T-A physics.
Okay.
And then I listen to podcasts and I listen to a lot of Alan Watts. Another guy who wrote, Sapiens and Homo Deus, Yuval Noah Harari.
Okay.
That stuff's pretty inspiring. Yeah.
Okay. Second to last question. What is a role, project, or similar that you've always wanted to do but weren't able to because of logistics, like budget or casting or timeline, some other kind of restraints? Something that you've always wanted to create but couldn't because of logistics of the moment.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, I've got fantasies of having a hit Broadway show that I've directed or that I'm in. Certainly, I have fantasies about an amazing short film or something like that. I don't know if I want to spend my life making those things happen, but I think those are one of those things where those are some of those things where I'm not sure that if it's do I want to actually make those things or do I want to have made those things? Yeah. I haven't made them, so it may be the case that I want to have made them.
All right, last question. Well, second to last question. If you could tag any 3 other clowns to be on this podcast, who would they be?
Well, I think find this guy Bolek Polivka. He's pretty great. Jeff Hoyle. I've named a bunch, right? Obviously, I mean, I'm naming the ones that you already know. Let's see, who else?
Bolek Polivka is a new one for me.
Polivka. This dude, Dr. Brown, Phil Burgers, down here in LA. He's doing some interesting stuff. Cool. He did really great a year or 2 ago at Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Well, I mean, somebody that nobody's heard of, but I think one day people will have heard of is a woman that was in our original Wet the Hippo group. Her name is Natalie Palomides. And I can get you her information on another line, but she's somebody to watch. She's amazing. Who else is out there? I mean, Master of None is an amazing TV show, and he's basically a clown in that.
Sorry? Okay.
But it's not somebody you can interview. I'm just thinking of good media, good clowns out there.
Last question.
All right.
Wet the Hippo, the Idiot Workshop. Where can people find your work online?
Yeah, well, we don't. This is our big, our lacking. We don't create enough material for online. We don't make enough videos.
But they can find out about the shows and stuff in the classes.
But they can find out about shows and classes. So at theidiotworkshop.com or wetthehippo.com. And I think soon we'll be creating more video content that people can access on those websites. But for now, you can find out about shows and classes on those websites. And then also follow us on Facebook, Wet the Hippo. Same for Twitter and Instagram. It's all Wet the Hippo.
All right. John, thank you so much for being on our podcast. This was actually one of my goals of the podcast was to have you on. So I appreciate you taking the time.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, brother.
Thank you,
I appreciate it.
I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Thank you for joining us today on Ridiculous Life of a Clown. This program, as always, is made possible by your support through our Patreon, which you can find through www.picklewater.com. Also, please join us this coming January 27th, 2018 at 7 p.m. at Stageworks Theater in San Francisco for a huge circus gala featuring clowns, comedians, and burlesque dancers, all in benefit of Planned Parenthood. Hope to see you then. Bye-bye.